Hello everybody, so this is, well, as you can probably guess in the background, the N64. So I'm going to talk about the N64 Core for the MiSTer, and I'm just going to open it by saying, well, it's probably the best experience of N64 you're going to get in this era in 2025 without shelling out for an actual N64 and then modding it. To give it the nice crisp display. So rolling back on that, why bother? Why bother going for a N64 recreation on an FPGA? Well, the reason is that the N64 is a notoriously difficult system to emulate, and there's loads of reasons for that, which I to be honest with you, I only barely understand, and it's largely to do with that. Emulation works largely by replacing function calls with compatible function calls on a different system. And so for lots of chipsets, that's fairly easy. And the specifications are fairly well known for different chipsets. And so, yeah, it works. It's not ideal, but it works. For the N64, it's a little bit more difficult, I should say. The N64 did a lot more than what other consoles did at the time. And so, yeah, that's always been the difficulty of getting emulation to work in a very successful way. The other thing with the N64 that I've always noticed is that, well, everybody always used to give shade to the controls. I personally really liked the control on the N64. I know it wasn't everyone's cup of tea, but I think it worked quite well. Where people get a little bit upset is that when you play an N64 on an emulator with a modern controller, you typically experience this kind of very jerky response from the controller. And I did a little bit of digging around, and I did a little bit of testing, and I feel the reason why is because for a lot of the cheap recreations of N64 controllers, like your USB ones for about $15, by the way, don't buy them, is because the ADC output of the analog stick maxes out at around 50% of the position. So if you get to your 50% X position, it will be giving you 100% on the N64 core. On the N64 emulator. And so that gives you this really jerky response. So the other thing you can do, or should do, even if you're playing on an emulator, is buy one of the better controllers, or have software which you can undo this kind of horrible jankiness. So what I'm using for my MiSTer is it's about $36. I can't remember exactly what brand it is, but show a picture and you can look at these on Amazon. They're worth every penny in my opinion. The other thing you can get is the Nintendo Online recreation controller. That apparently does exactly the same thing. So when you're on 100% on the analog stick, it is showing as 100% on the MiSTer or on the N64. So that fixes the controls. So yeah, with that being said, I think that the N64 core on the MiSTer is wonderful. It's able to achieve a very high level of compatibility with games. I think it's 99.97%. I think it's only one ROM which is known not to work from the official library. And if I'm not mistaken, that is something which is difficult to test. It's like a modem add-on for the N64, and so it's something which realistically nobody cares about. There are a few games which, to my knowledge, will randomly crash. And again, exactly hunting down exactly the source of these random crashes is difficult. Although I have heard that if you run the Turbo Core, the crashing is a little bit less. So there's obviously some kind of race condition, etc. If anybody sees this that knows that these have been fixed, then do comment on the video and say, hey, Eros, you're wrong, because I could easily be wrong. All I can say, though, is that the reason why I love coming back to the N64 is largely because of Ocarina of Time, Perfect Dark, and Goldeneye, and Rogue Squadron from time to time. I never had a console between basically the original Game Boy and the N64. It was largely because, as I've stated in some other videos, my family always wanted to go computers as opposed to consoles. And so when I played consoles, it was typically at other people's houses, like at Christmas time or the summer holidays. And that was exactly my experience with the N64. I played Goldeneye and Ocarina of Time to death at a friend's house over a summer holiday. And so what happened was that I saved a bunch of money, and I was given a bunch of money because I did very well in my exams. Thank you very much. And I got given some money, and I went out and bought an N64 because I wanted to play Ocarina of Time. I wanted to figure it out for myself, and I also wanted to play Goldeneye because I wanted to get good and be able to beat my friends. And so that really starts it off. And beyond that, I only really had 2 games for the longest period of time. I then acquired Rogue Squadron and Perfect Dark, thanks to playing them at, again, a friend's house. And amazing experience. I would say that Perfect Dark is probably one of the best games on the system. I know people will say, no, GoldenEye is. But in my opinion, like GoldenEye was a very competent FPS. And I think the reason why people love it so much is because of that. It's one of the first more competent console FPS games of the era. Perfect Dark, however, just takes that and builds on it and makes it so much better. The reason why people don't like it is because, you know, the N64 struggled to run it. That's just the truth. The N64 was a little bit underpowered for what Perfect Dark was trying to do at the time. Now, the interesting part of it is that you can get efficiency ROMs where they've had all of the wasteful function calls removed, and you can get near perfect frame rates from it, if you can believe it. I have tested it. It is true. It's wonderful. So yeah, that's what I would say. If you have the expensive solution, which is the MiSTer, and you're into N64, you're probably already playing the N64 Core. If you haven't, then you must. You've really got to. And if you're really interested in playing the N64, but you know the prices for a console and then modding it might be a little bit counterproductive for you, then the MiSTer is a very, very capable system to get in order to do that. So yeah, that's the N64 Core on the MiSTer.